So idols, the first thing, warning about idols, is that they will always let you down. They'll always disappoint you. But also, idols want to control us. The second danger of idols is that they will want to control us. 1 Corinthians 12:2, Paul's teaching this church at Corinth, and he tells them this. He says, you know that when you were still pagans, you were led astray and swept along and worshiping speechless idols. And he gives this little phrase here, led astray and swept along. And, sorry, my iPad just crashed. But he uses this phrase, led astray, and I want to look at those two phrases, led astray and swept along, because they mean two different things. See, swept along has this idea, like we've all seen in the hurricane that just came through, of control. That when Hurricane Ian, and we saw on the pictures online, and you saw like the surge come in, and it's amazing to see a 12-foot surge come through a town and just completely decimate it. And everything in its way is just swept along. Everything in its way is thrown aside. There's nothing that can stop it. It's totally in control. And I used to go surfing down in California, and I'd have this longboard, and some days when I go out and the surf was really strong and you're just trying to paddle out, and it felt like it was impossible. You're just paddling as hard as you could, but you can't fight the current. And that's what Paul's saying. He's like, these idols, they're carrying you along like this current that you can't fight. You don't have any control. That's what idols do. This idea of being swept along without control has another term that we use today. It's called addiction. And so many people battle addictions in so many different ways. There's the addiction of sex, of work, the addiction of laziness, fear, social media, fitness, approval of others, sports, hobbies, so many things besides just substance abuse. A lot of times that's how we think of addictions. Well, I'm not addicted to anything that really harms my body, but we're addicted to something else. We're addicted to social media. In fact, so many of us are so addicted to an idol in our life that we no longer recognize it as an idol. It's been there for so long. It's been buried there. We've been okay with it being in there for so long that we don't even consider it an idol anymore. See, he says that idols sweep us away. They control us. They try to cause us to be addicted to them, to change us. But then he says this also, he says that they lead us astray as well. And there are two different meanings here between carried away and led astray. See, led astray means this, that we lose perspective. It means that when an idol starts to control us, starts to change us, we are lured away from what is right. And we easily find ourselves finding excuses for why the ends justify the means. And so maybe at one point in our lives, we're like, man, I would never do that. I would never say that. I would never treat somebody like that. I would never go that direction with my life. But then as we let idols infest our heart, as we start being changed by them, they start controlling us. They start leading us astray. And then they start changing our perspective. And finally, we find ourselves over in this spot where we said, I would never be there. I would never do that. And then we look back and we're like, what happened? How did I get here? It's because idols lead us astray. And idols, this looks like the degradation of values in our life. When what we thought was valuable, what was a conviction in our heart, is no longer worth it. We don't find the value in that anymore. Maybe a promotion became so important that it meant forsaking your family. It meant neglecting your family. Or maybe for a profit motive, suddenly lying wasn't that big of a deal. Maybe breaking a promise wasn't that big a deal anymore. It's a degradation of values. That's what leading astray means. And idols will always lead to the degradation of integrity in our lives.